I was able to do an interview with a couple of developers from Passtech on the upcoming Hourglass of Dreams update, and we talked a lot about future plans and ideas for the future of Ravenswatch and what will be happening. There's no gameplay in this video, it is purely us just talking, so feel free to put it on like a podcast and do a run or do something else. Hope you guys enjoy. Peace.
So Passtech Games is a video game studio based in France, in Lyon. And we are the guys making Ravenswatch, the action roguelite game, where you play as characters inspired by tales and legends. And the game launched in early access back in 2023, then in 1.0 in 2024, and now we are almost 1 year later of the 1.0, and we're still producing content for the game, adding new updates and DLCs. And we have a new one coming up in just a couple of days on September 17th, and it's going to be the Hourglass of Dreams update. And as for an introduction, I'm Margot. I'm the communications director at Passtech Games, and I deal with making visual assets, marketing assets for the game, such as trailers and other stuff, communication plans, and obviously work with the community to bring you guys feedback into the game and share everything with the rest of the team.
And hi everyone, I'm Slimman. So I'm the game designer, mainly in charge of the live ops on Ravenswatch. I joined about actually almost at the same time as the 1.0, a bit before than that, starting putting in place the live ops, see what was done, and trying to think of new content for the rest of the game. So in a very short time, people will be able to discover the new update of the game, something that we have been working upon for the past few months. I hope you're going to like it. It's always good to read your comments and feedback and see how you are working on the game. Playing on the game. We are the one working, but it's kind of sometimes it feels like it's a mutual exchange of information. And so yeah, I'm quite happy to be able to talk directly to someone who actually watched a lot of videos. So
Yeah.
it's quite nice.
Yeah, well, thank you guys so much for being here. I really appreciate also this opportunity to get to talk to you guys. It's really, really cool for me on my end as well, having this experience. Um, so getting right into it, with the Hourglass of Dreams coming up, we have some big changes to our timer and how that works. One of the big things is you can start the boss early and be rewarded after beating the boss with experience, dream shards, and magical objects. I wanted to ask you guys if you can reveal any of like the thresholds or how that system works and what you are rewarded based off how early you start the boss.
Okay, sure. I'm going to give like some indication, not everything, because like, it's kind of fun to solve the mystery. So basically the earliest time you can get the reward is like 15 minutes. Technically, you could go at like 17 and 40 seconds if you would like to, but for fairness and a bit of like balancing, we really start the reward around 15 minutes. And until the very last second, you're guaranteed to have something. So how does it work is that we are going to have some fixed set of rewards based on the time you make to reach the boss. And on top of those fixed reward, we're gonna add like random loot. For those loot, like the rarity is not fixed. So even if you are on the last second, you might be a bit lucky and still get a legendary, for example. But if you are very early, you are going to get like some fixed reward, like for 15 minutes. You're guaranteed to have like multiple legendaries, epic, rare, and on top of that, random loot. And based on that, we are going to have a decreasing curve that go down to the last second. And there's a bit of mixing in that, like I don't give you the exact threshold because in terms of like how is it based, it's like if you are under a certain time, based on how far you are under the certain time, you still have a percentage of chances to get like the upper reward.
Gotcha. So it is more like a curve rather than a stair step of what happens.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. I was gonna go to our next question because one of the biggest things in this update as well is a brand new quest for each chapter. And for me, I think the quests are one of the coolest parts of the game because you get this deviation from the normal gameplay experience where you're doing something outside of point of interest. And I think it gives you guys the opportunity to, build this world of reverie a little bit. You get to tell little stories from different folklore characters. And I'm really curious, like, what was the inspiration and the ideas with these quests, the three new ones that we have, and really making them stand out as a point of interest and feel unique from everything else?
Well, for Jack and the Beanstalk, I think it was just a fun idea to change the location completely and to go up in the sky. It's a nice way to expand the world vertically and not just horizontally. And we are used to go underground with the caves, with the sewers, but it was a nice way to go on a different directions and go actually in the clouds. Plus, for Jack, it was often requested by the community as a playable hero. And we thought that the tale of Jack and the Beanstalk, it was really cool and had a lot of cool themes. But Jack didn't have very distinctive stuff to himself to make him a hero. But he was cool enough to be an NPC. So that's why we went to that direction for Jack. And for Sinbad, maybe you want to...
Yeah, so for Sinbad, for starter, the team had a ton of ideas on what to do for the first quest of it. And based on all the stories of Sinbad, like a few were standing out. We had the story with the Cyclops and we had the story with the rocks. And we know that the community is not very kind on our rocklings. It's not the most beloved in me, let's face it. And we wanted to do something a bit better with it. So we tried to make a good rock boss, like a good bird, something like the community would be a bit more fond of compared to the standard units.
Yeah.
So that was the idea of it, like between like the tale of Sinbad and like let's try to address something from the community as well.
And it's also like the first boss fight where you don't kill the boss at the end. You have to tame him, tame it. And it's also a fun, different way of dealing with a boss fight, I think.
You do eat him, but you don't kill him.
You don't kill him. That's the difference. And for Mordred, I think the thing that is really changing from the other quests is the fact that the quest starts right when you enter the room. You don't have to talk to NPC to activate it. And that's one of the fun things we wanted to explore, just to have like a different way of doing a quest.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, if you play with multiplayer and someone is not very, let's say someone doesn't really listen to the barks and the dialogues, they might trigger the quest for everybody, and it's a time quest in a bit of a different manner than some others saying. Like players are going to cross quite a large distance on the map with multiple camps. So kind of a mini dungeon, say it that way. So you kind of have to synchronize to start that quest. And we wanted to approach this way of like an autonomous activity, something a bit different from the usual press interaction, things like that. And as for the boss, is like we had done Arthur. Arthur is dead. Who killed Arthur in the Mythos? It was Mordred. So we went on that way, and we wanted to have like a knight boss, a bit more cliche in a sense, but a knight boss with a sword, because that's what everybody wants to see.
And one of the things I actually really like with the quest is how you do progress in it, and you actually come up top, like up a level. And I like that you can skip the staircase segment if you're planning it. Like, hey, let's go take on the quest, and then we can just appear up there and save some time. I thought that was really cool. First seeing it, and you're like, oh, whoa, you're actually in a new place. I think that's a really fun idea.
Thank you.
And then one of the big things I think people are going to be interested in is what are some of the character balance changes that we'll be seeing in this update?
Obviously, Romeo and Juliet, we're going to balance them a bit because we received a lot of feedback about them. We actually, for the first time, received the feedback that the character was too strong, which was kind of a new thing for us to experiment. So we reworked them. We also tried to it's gonna be a mix of both. Like some talents are gonna be buffed, some talents are gonna be not nerfed but slightly changed, like to address the thing on Juliet or to like the love shield on Romeo, which was a bit too strong. One of the things that to explain why it happened in the first place is that when the character were imagined first, they were very multiplayer only, so performing the special was much harder as you had to time it with a friend. And by the switch to single player, it was a bit more difficult to balance it, saying is it going to be easy or too easy, too hard to do. And so we have some few talents that we are rebalancing to make it better with the current situation. And to pass the end to Margot, is that we also like we got a lot of comments on the survey we sent you, and we started building things from that point.
Yeah, but it's a long process, and I think it's part of your next questions. But we're taking the time to really look at all the data that we have, and that's why in this update we wanted to focus our attention on Romeo and Juliet, and give more time for the other heroes to show up in other updates, basically.
Okay. And I know you guys actually did mention, and I got to experience, you did say Pied Piper, there was just some error in how the rat damage was being calculated. After playing Pied Piper and seeing this change, I can't say the rat build is very, very potent. I already think it was, but the change there is definitely noticeable.
Yeah, there's still obviously some tweaks and fixes and adjustments, little adjustments in the update, but it was not really our focus on this one.
Gotcha. And then, yeah, going into this next question, at what point do you think, or at what point do you make the decision for something needing to be rebalanced? From my end, I'm trying to think like, when do we decide to touch something? I know you guys had mentioned seductive provocation. Is it purely based off like your guys' internal data on how often something is chosen and how often something isn't? Or are there other factors that you look at when rebalancing?
Well, there's really a lot of different sources of data that we look at when we make such decisions. And one of the first things is that we play test the game a lot here at the studio, really intensively, especially when we are building a new update. And the whole studio is welcome to share feedback at this point, and we try to understand what the people are here at the studio feels, because usually it reflects on the community and what the community will think. But then, of course, we also have other means to look at those type of data and feedback. We look at the players' in-game stats, which gives us indications on pick rates on magical objects and talents. We obviously read all the feedback on the forums, on Discord, sometimes even emails. We sent like recently a survey, a survey focused. What's the name?
It was focused especially on talent.
Yeah, focused especially on talent and magical objects, because it was one of the big subjects we wanted to tackle on future updates. And obviously, you also look at and watch videos of the community, of you and other YouTubers and live streamers. And that's a really good way of looking at the game from a different perspective, from players who know the game really well, and sometimes who don't. And it's really fun to compare and see those types of interactions with the game. And then we discussed everything with the production team, the design team, the community team, try to find the right, to get a right idea of what everybody is saying about the game. For example, we were talking about Juliet before, but it was really a consensus in the community that Juliet was too strong, or she was really overperforming compared to the other heroes. So it was really something kind of obvious. And there's things that are obvious, like seductive provocation, and some that are a bit less obvious. But from looking at all those data, we kind of figure what needs to be balanced and what priority, and also how long it's going to take us to balance it or change it. And that's why we put priorities and such on things. And that's why, even though we know seductive provocation is problematic and not well loved at all, we completely agree and understand. It's not changed yet because it takes time and resources, and we put a priority on this to be on
If you
other updates.
to get a bit of background on like so what happened with some talents with seductive provocation? Like first we started with the idea of like, okay, what vampire does, they're seductive. Okay, we're gonna try something with that. And the idea of a character stopping moving seemed intriguing at first. So we put it in the game, we playtest around us. So basically when we playtest is that, like, for example, I or another designer will make a balance change, something in the game, and everybody start pouring messages onto me saying it's too strong or too weak. And then I start to filter out to make it good. And usually when people stop complaining, I feel like I'm kind of reaching a good balance. And on seductive provocation, the tricky part is that when you make a new character, so they come with 26 talents on top of the base one, and you have like people starting to like make their own build, and sometimes they don't really pick that much of one talent is not really much picked compared to the other, and you tend to not see it very much, and you kind of push it like maybe in that situation it works, maybe in that situation it works. You have a lot of testing with one player, and so we're testing it, and at some point you're like, okay, I'm testing it a lot, maybe with player will have a different perspective of it, because like you spend so much time testing one player, a character or specific challenge that you are like, it's exactly how it's going to work. I need to see other people playing with it. And we still love the idea of like stopping, trying different stuff. In multiplayer, it kind of worked, and in single player, it was like working all right, but we were not sure about it. And yeah, it didn't work out, but we kind of see it very quickly. So the first thing we try, like, okay, let's like amp up the number. We're gonna give it a massive buff, but it doesn't fix the issue because the issue is at the core. So we even look on how we can like bind it to another key, but it still wasn't working very well. So like the legitimate conclusion is that we have to rework the whole talent. But to rework the whole talent, you kind of have to, we need animation, we need FX, we need to make something cool to replace it entirely. And so we kind of have like a box of all the talents we want to rework entirely. And they are going to come, but yeah, it takes a bit of time. So yeah, sometimes a talent slips through. It's not that it slips through, that it didn't work out as planned. For example, yes,
Yeah.
say
And
sometimes we
sometimes
try stuff and
sometimes it's actually fun to see that you follow way of the object of the talent is going to be used,
yeah,
and then the players use it completely differently, and you're like, oh, okay, it's fun this way. We're going to lean in that direction, or maybe it's more like, oh, it's a bug and it's breaking the game, so we need to address it too. So it's really like, a balance between the two.
yeah, we're very fond of the kind of exploit video people do make, like the Aladdin wish machine. For
Yeah.
example, it's a very famous one, but this is the kind of thing like we're like, oh wow, that's actually really cool to do that. So yeah, it's sometimes you, as a developer, you're not seeing the way that player are gonna do it. Like you put a talent for people to use it, and they use it completely differently, and it's kind of cool to see it. And sometimes, sadly, it doesn't happen with like selective provocation, but in those cases, we rework the talent, try to do another thing.
Gotcha. Okay, well that's really cool to hear and see how that's prioritized. One of these next questions was inspired. I don't know if you guys watched any of the like lockout bingo videos I have done where it's me and someone else, we race each other to play Ravenswatch as quick as possible, and there's a point, like a checklist of what we need to do. And from that, it made us more aware of the different power levels each seed can have. So each instance of the game, like what's available to a person on a map and how that can impact their run and how strong they could be going into chapter 2. I had the question of how wide that range can be, like how powerful or average a player can have just based off the map. Are you guys happy with that range of power, or do you feel like the game needs more or less randomness between the seeds?
Go for it.
Yeah, okay.
It's your type of question.
So right now we're kind of satisfied. It's that in terms of, we added a lot of activities into the game. since the start, and it did change the generation. So basically, before you only had like chest, shards, and grimoire. It's quite easy to get what you want. And we do understand that, especially for chest, as there is more activities, the amount of chests have decreased. So what we try to do is that we try to add activities that bring back the kind of reward. Like for example, like we have all those special tiles. Special tiles are activity, like very different activity compared to the kind of a chest, like a chest for it's a reward in a camp. Special tile are like the two more, the keykeeper and things like that. So basically, like the keykeeper, we added it. Like yes, it might remove a chest and a shard, but it comes with a key that can get you like a double chest to kind of compensate and add another thing. So what we try to do is like to like in the next update, you will discover a new type of activity that's gonna kind of go for the shard side of stuff, the dream shard. And what we try to do is like to have generation where we feel it's still fair and you still have enough variety to never see the same things twice. We do have to kind of be careful though, as the more activity we have, the more finicky this balance become. For example, the two more so far is the only fixed activity in the game. You always have a two more, no matter what the generation. And that's kind of a fallback for us if like at some point we're like, all right, we want to add more variety, maybe we're gonna swap the two more. It's not gonna be mandatory anymore. Just an example, just theory. But the balancing that is gonna come up with the next update, like the hourglass and
Over time.
yeah, and over time, no, I wasn't sure if players had seen everything
No,
already.
yeah, I've
Okay,
seen pretty
like
much
okay, the
everything.
hourglass and the leprechaun cauldron is gonna address some of this issue because it's gonna be easier to get more objects and more shards with it. And we have also more things that are gonna come out in the future. But yeah, it's not an easy things to balance, and we try to, when we bring an activity, we try to bring something that always give the player a reward, so they don't feel like they lost on something.
Okay, so and I noticed that as well with the leprechaun cauldron, that while it is a different point of interest, you still are getting dream shards, and I like that it also brings a different level of urgency to a dream shard camp, right? Because you don't want to go in there level 1, take
Yeah.
2 minutes to fight it and come out with 10 dream shards. You want to potentially delay that, come back when you're stronger. So I do like the idea that you guys approach that with of, hey, let's add some urgency to a camp, but you still are getting a similar reward. And if you can perform really well, you're actually getting a better reward, from what I've seen, than the original camp. Like say a green dream shard camp, you could actually pull more, a lot more there if you're efficient with that. So I
Yeah,
do
exactly.
like that idea.
This is what we try to do. Yeah.
Okay. And then this is something that pops up a lot on streams. I'll stroll into a camp and it's people going, "How is that orange? How is that camp orange?" You'll see two healing cultists, a dagger cultist, a summoner, and like an eel. And then you'll go into a red camp and it's three spiders. I know that the size of the camp can impact the enemies there, but I was curious how you guys scale, if there's like a point system for enemies and how that scales and what's generated in a camp and how you can experience something like that, a really brutal orange camp and then a potentially easy red camp.
So first we do all have those saying internally, like people screaming in the office, like how is that an orange game? So we do have some orange games that are a bit harder than the traditional orange camp. Let's try to add like a gradient into the map to scale things a bit more different. But basically, how it works is that the generation system is based like on some weight. Like all enemy have a weight, and the elite, they take much more space in the generation. And red camps tend to prioritize elite enemies, and so it can happen that sometimes the red camp is gonna pull like for elites, like for spiders, for giant treants. But the thing is that it's actually not that hard to face four big thing compared to face like 10 different things squirming around. So it's an issue that we have noticed. It's an issue that we are addressing. We have made some balancing, and we are keep working on that. It's a bit tricky because it's in terms of difficulty, like how player perceive it. Like for not that advanced player, you get on a camp, you get like 2 big treants, you might feel like, oh, it's gonna be tough. I'm not dealing enough damage. It's gonna take a while. But for advanced player, yeah, sometimes you kind of you could feel like you're cruising on those kind of camps. So it's something that we try to address with May balancing, and to try to fix the most extreme cases. And we also are tweaking on the amount of players and the difficulty, how it impacts the camps. We already made a fix back then on the amount of enemies you would face when you were 4 or 3 compared to 2 or 1. And we're still working on that. But yeah, it's never an easy balancing. It's always something that we have to try to check on.
Gotcha. Okay. And then going into that, and enemies you can face. Bird aggro is a thing that people have talked about a lot. Sometimes there's been really comical moments. I believe this no longer happens in the current version of the game, but there would be times where you could walk by a phoenix egg and it would just continue spawning birds even if you left, and then you'd come back and you'd see 50 birds all right there. Currently, it does seem like, say you spawn to the wishing well or you teleport back to the wishing well and there was a bird that was 20 feet away, it still might be aggroed and chasing you. Are birds working as intended, or is there something going on there?
But hogbirds are not the only ones suffering from our current aggro system, I would say, which is based on bird's eye view, feeding for a rock.
Yeah, it's kind of work with the rock, but
yeah, it's something that still needs to be improved on, definitely.
yeah.
In future updates, not in this one, but in future updates, we want to improve the system by redesigning the aggro system, not based this time on bird's eye view, but on walking distance. I think the Pathfinder would be much better this way for the aggro. But in this update, we fixed the fact that enemies could attack you from behind barriers before that. But yeah, we're still making small adjustments to everything. The previous update, we fixed we improved on the leashing system, and yeah, the next big thing that we want to do is change the way the enemies aggro. But yeah, hogbirds are not the only one, but I do agree sometimes it's comical to seeing just flying.
It's complicated, yeah. It's like frogbirds are not the only one, but they are definitely the one who use that bias in the system the best. Well, in the worst, technically.
Nice, the
It's
best
like, wow.
abusers of it.
Yeah.
So I think I've got my answer on this, but one of the questions that I wanted was, what are you guys' thoughts on players sneaking chests from the optional bosses?
Are you saying this because you tried to sneak on the gold boss recently?
There's going to be a great video of me getting punished.
Yeah, so to me, I would say that there's no issues with the fact that players want to find a way to optimize their movements and actions, but fights are still meant to be fought, in my opinion, and I think in the studio's opinion. We'd rather see players defeat the bosses than avoid them, obviously. And also the reward that is behind those bosses is one of the strongest ones that you can get, the legendary or cursed items. So the fact that it's sometimes free is kind of defeats the purpose of it. But yeah, we've made a few adjustments in the last updates. Just reposition the boss so it prevents most cases, but if you're playing the right hero, if you're playing the right way, I think it's still possible to do it. It's somewhat a bit trickier.
We're sure you will find a way to, like you always do, you will find a way as a community to bypass that.
Yeah, definitely. But like I said, it's not a problem that players really optimize the way they are playing to be really good. It's too bad that the fights are not being fought.
No, it actually was a change I was really curious if we were ever going to get. And it was a very pleasant surprise for me the first time walking in there and dashing and be like, oh wait, I'm in combat already. Oh no. So I do like the change. I do agree with that. It does feel more rewarding when you actually need to use the timer, and that is one of the things is we do have overtime now, so you can, in chapter 1 say risk versus reward. Do I want to stay in here for a potential minute and a half and fight this? And then one of the things that you guys added to the game, and for me it was interestingly like one of the most enjoyable parts of experiencing this update, is there's more decor and variety in tile sets when going into camps. You guys had previously mentioned that it was very unlikely that we'd ever be getting a new chapter with how much development time that takes, and you guys just want to improve the chapters that we have. With these new camp tile sets, I was curious, how important is it to you guys to keep the game visually new and different? Because for me, this was one of the coolest changes in the game. You now have completely new ways of approaching camps, and it makes Ravenswatch just feel a little new going to these new camps.
Yeah, well, you said it, and it's really cool that you enjoy this new content, because like enemy camps, it's something that you are going to see a lot in the game. So obviously, it's one of the best things we can improve to have some freshness to the game, because it's really something that you go through on whole chapters, and it was really important to have this variety, just because it's sometimes it's just simple as that. You don't have to have a ton of new activities to make everything fresh, to have a new way to go through generic scenes, but still have a little bit of storytelling sometimes on what happened on this camp and such. So it's a really nice way, and I think the team did a really great job with how the new decor turned out.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's exactly that. Trying to add a bit of freshness for veteran players and for new players alike. Adding like just expanding on the world of Revelry a bit more by just adding a few new location and scenery.
Yeah, I think the art team did a great job with that. I've noticed more as well. I said it once in chapter 2. I'm like, is there a body there? Has there always been a dead body there? And people in my chat have been like, have you looked at this game? They're everywhere. They're like, look around. There's a lot of this stuff. And so in these new camps, I've really looked at like the different decor and stuff in there, and it's really cool. Okay, so the next questions are a lot of questions that I pulled from chat during a live stream, but also some questions I have about the future of the game. I'm not entirely sure how many of these you guys are going to be able to answer, but just seeing what you guys are looking for moving forward or things that you might add. So one of them was, are there ever plans to add input seeds or like a sandbox mode in the game so two people can play the exact same game while not in the same game, like the same instance of the game?
Yeah, that's actually a very good idea, and that would make for a great like a dedicated update. Like we have all those ideas of a thing a bit more focused around like modifiers and community sharing. Like the seed stuff is definitely into that category. Is that something we are looking on? Because yeah, that will be a very good idea, and we want to also rework like how modifiers work, how player can use them a bit more freely to have a more interesting experience.
And not have them hidden somewhere
Yeah.
in the game, because it's not very user friendly, I think.
Yeah, it's not very user friendly, and right now it appears that either easy mode or like very hard mode, where it's more about like creating new challenges. So we want to expand on that, and the kind of like the player sandbox stuff definitely fall into that category.
Okay, and then this kind of answered this, but I still wanted to touch on this a little bit. You guys did change the timer and how it works with this update, and you have the oppressive nightmare and the explorer modifiers for either no timer or making that timer a bit more harsher. Do you guys have any potential plans on other time related either gameplay mechanics or modifiers coming to the game that could really change up how the game works?
We do have some ideas for a new type of modifiers. Maybe not time related in like in a basic way of like related to the timer exactly, but we do have a lot of ideas for modifier. As we said just before, it's an underexploited side of the game. Like people don't use it that much. But definitely, like if you can now with the overtime stuff, try the new modifier where you don't have the minimaps, you're in for a much more stressful experience than before. Because
Yeah.
good luck finding the boss now.
Oh, that actually is really interesting. That actually sounds like a really fun challenge.
But yeah, we're working on a lot of. We have a lot of ideas for new modifiers and things that can enhance the game more than just activities, but outside the game.
Yeah, and as a matter of changing the way you play, I think we're still keen on trying new stuff like we did with the Hourglass of Dreams and the Overtime, and have rules or other things that can affect the whole run within a run with a modifier or without a modifier. So it's something definitely we are interested in for future updates. Yeah.
Okay. And then would you guys consider adding daily challenges like you guys had in Curse of the Dead Gods, where you have like a custom set of modifiers to challenge the player, or like a rotating set or something like that?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Probably like you mentioned in a dedicated update based on challenges, on modifiers and stuff like that.
We actually had those kind of stuff back on the drawing board for the first update.
Yeah, true.
Oh, okay. Well, that's awesome to hear. That's really exciting. I loved Curse of the Dead Gods. I think it wasn't my first roguelike, but it was the first one that got me really into them. Like I sunk 100 hours into that game really quickly, so really enjoyed that system. And then you guys had mentioned plans on adjusting talents, and you did the community survey asking about new talents. Curious, are there any new talents coming to the game, and how would you address, an over flooding of talents and how to balance that?
Well, it's a tough question because the answer is kind of yes and no. If we want to, add new talents to the game, yes, in the way that there's talent that needs to be reworked anyway. We've talked about selective provocation earlier, but there's others in the game that needs to be reworked and changed completely. So that's a way to add new talent to the game, but just add like 1 or 2 talent per hero. That's already like 22 talents because we have 11 heroes. So that's a lot, and it takes a lot of time to find the ID, try it, do the VFX, do the sound, do the animations. All of that while we're also working on other updates and also new heroes. And when we put everything in the balance, in like what do we want to do, where do we want to put the resources we have in the game, I think it's always going to be we want to add new heroes because it's a much more efficient way of bringing freshness, something unique, something sometimes atypical, and just be able to explore completely different new play styles with a new hero.
Yeah.
So that's why we're not really keen on adding more talents to the existing heroes, because it's taking a lot of resources that we rather put into new heroes. And also, we think that since we are already reworking talents for existing heroes, it's a nice way of bringing freshness to the talent pool and the meta of the heroes, but being very specific and targeted on some heroes and not having to add on top of all the heroes already.
Yeah, if you, like Margot said, if you just do the math, like 2 talents per hero is like 22 new talents to make. A brand new hero, it's 26 talents. So if you try to close the gap, we might as well going to go with a new hero. But there's definitely a lot of stuff coming to the talent. We've been talking a lot about the survey, compiling the number and the different feedback. It's interesting to see like some talents, a lot of people are pointing to them, but on some heroes, like the answer are much more divided. Like some people are happy with the talents, people are not. And it's interesting to see. So picking the talents to be reworked is kind of a challenge in itself. As is it not, people are not discussing it because they don't pick it, or do we need to focus on the talent that people are discussing, even though the discussion doesn't really have a clear divide. So it's kind of interesting, like to see all the data and see what everything's thought of the different talents in the game.
Okay, gotcha. That makes sense. I know Snow Queen was a character that I thought some talents were actually weak to start out, and then Tree Onion posted a video using the dash build with defense canceling and how powerful that was, and it completely reshaped. Oh my god, wait, some of these talents are really, really good if you play the game in a completely different way that most players weren't playing. So I do think, yeah, to your point there might be some hidden gems that people might be discussing, like, no, please don't change that. That's really, really good. You just need to learn how to play that. So I also do think it probably is a nightmare for you guys to add a bunch new talents and try to balance how often these talents now come up or what you should do, how you should address that, because you don't want a person to never see a talent that they might really want in a run because there's so many.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same for magical objects.
Yeah.
Like we know a lot of people want to have new magical objects, and so do we, because it's pretty cool. But the more you had, the more you dilute. I don't say in English.
Yeah, you dilute the pool.
The pool of objects, and then it's way harder to actually build something. So it's also that kind of tricky question that sometimes doesn't need an answer.
Okay. And then this one I got a few times from chat. Do you guys plan on adding colorblind accessibility to the game?
It's definitely something that we thought on way earlier when we started working on Ravenswatch, and to us, accessibility is something that has to be thought about before starting to build a game or right at the beginning, because other time it's going to be very hard to implement it, and I really don't know what the implications of adding such features, such accessibility features would be like in a game of Ravenswatch where everything is red, everything is a different type of red. So yeah, it's I think it's a question that we need to study definitely, and we are always keen to bring more accessibility to the game. Obviously, it just depends on the time we have, the resources that we have, and what place it's gonna take of another feature, and to see if it's actually feasible. Because, like I said, in Ravenswatch, since we didn't think about it from the beginning, I don't know what the implications of doing this would be for the game.
Okay, gotcha. And then here I have another just list of questions that I really didn't know if you guys would be able to answer any of these. So it's going to be fun to see what the responses are. Are there plans for the game after the roadmap updates are finished?
Yeah.
Yes, there's more.
Okay.
It's funny because we are really in two different timelines, I think. There's a timeline where we are going to release the third update, Hourglass of Dreams, that we finished months ago. Like it just took a long time to go through console submissions and everything, testing and everything. But since then, we are in timeline on the other timeline where we are working on update 4 and even update 5. So we are way behind. We're not behind.
Like
before.
Yeah. So we're in the future.
And we are in the future. Yeah. And so yes, just because of that, I can say that there's more after the fourth update, which is another hero DLC. And we are very happy of how year 1 turned out and how it's going. Basically, we couldn't have expected a better outcome. And like I mentioned at the beginning, we are almost a year after launch of the 1.0 launch, sorry. And the community has shown no signs of tiredness, so it's really cool. So as long as you guys are playing and you still want to see some content, we really hope that we can provide that to you in the future. And our next hero DLC, the next hero updates will be quite stressful and decisive for us, because it's the first that we release as a paid hero DLC. And we'll see how it turns out. It kind of will tell us in the future what we're going to do with Ravenswatch. But yes, there's more after the first roadmap. We have a whole lot of ideas, a whole lot of new heroes to add to the game. So
what's interesting is, like, for example, like the survey we sent about the challenge is that by the time people answered it, like update 3 was already kind of done, was it? So what we're using the survey is for the updates 4 and 5. So it's kind of create like this little bit of delay between the answer from the community and when they are implemented. So sometimes it kind of feel like it's very far away into the future, but like we are actually quite already knee deep into update 4. So we have to think if we can add some stuff in that update, or we're going to move it to the next update. So that's why they create sometimes this feeling that some issue are addressed a bit too late. But they kind of also create that thing, and that's also why sometimes we are not rebalancing things instantly, because we know the new content we are adding to the game, so we know how it's gonna change the way you're playing. Like you tested it with like the hourglass and the overtime.
Mm-hmm.
Like it does change how you're gonna face some stuff in the game.
Yeah.
Like just gonna give a quick example. You see the voodoo doll.
I knew you were gonna say
Yeah,
that.
well, like let's say the voodoo doll. You can kill boss quicker. It's not one of the most picked objects in the game. We're working on it. We have some new ideas. But now with the overtime and like the hourglass, it might be a bit more interesting, like to kill some stuff faster in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of an example where we are waiting also to see how people are going to approach the new update with the old content, to see if the meta is still the same.
Gotcha. Okay. No, and that makes sense. I do feel for game developers a lot when it does come to balancing, especially when you guys do put out a survey like that. It's like, cool, we told them this. Next week they're going to fix it, and you're like, that's insane to think.
But just because we are pushing the updates on all platforms at the same time, just because of that, it's going to add at least a month of delay.
Yeah.
So even if we wanted to quickly fix something, it's always going to take more time, because we're also pushing the game on consoles as well. So
Gotcha.
Yeah, delivering patches and also have to take much longer depending on the platform.
Yep.
So one of the really cool things with Ravenswatch is this day and night cycle, and there's some interactions that do change how characters play through the day and night cycle. I was curious if there's any more plans to lean into that, potentially with new heroes or points of interest that might interact differently based off did you start it in the daytime or nighttime?
Well, yeah. I asked the question when I joined the company actually a year ago, like what was the logic behind it, and during the early access, it was like something that was very present actually.
Even before.
Yeah, I saw the concept and stuff like that. It was very present. But
Yeah,
by the time like Beowulf joined the game, it felt that the day and night cycle was kind of a restraining like the type of hero the team could create, because they always had to think of a logical connection to the night, and sometimes you don't have it based on that folklore hero you're picking on. Like, and this it kind of hindered the potential hero you could make for the game and stuff like that. So it kind of like sometimes some hero connected to it, like you have Snow Queen and Piper that do have some effect at night. And for Beowulf, it's not present here at all. For Carmilla, it's back because it makes sense. She's a vampire, so you kind of have to play on the day and night. What we kind of decided is to use the day and night cycle for the players if it makes sense for the hero, if it makes sense with the story and like the folklore around it, like the whole universe. We still do have like enemies that do react differently at night. They always have something a bit different. And if we are adding new enemies or things like that, that's something that we're going to keep. But for heroes, we're trying to have like a meaningful connection with the day and night cycle, and not just something a bit more, a bit too superficial. We received the feedbacks from players that did not understand that there was any difference for like Piper at night or Snow Queen at night. Like they could see that the notes were looking different, but they were not understanding how it was different actually.
Okay.
Yeah, and I can actually really dive back on this one, because at the very early stages of development of Ravenswatch back in 2021, 2022, the day and night cycle was one of the core mechanic of the game. And Scarlet is really a testament to that. We chose this character because she's French like us, but also because she had like this night and day mechanic. And like you said, we try to keep it on the other heroes, and it was really difficult, especially on the Snow Queen. We were like, okay, stop. It's gonna be really complicated to maintain this ID, and that's why there was even a work on Snow Queen. I think in the early stages of early access, where we just changed the kits, and I don't even remember if we kept all the night and day stuff on her.
No, I think some of them have been scrapped.
Oh. But yeah, it was a cool idea on the paper. In practice, it was way more difficult to maintain.
So that's the thing also with early access. So you see the feedback of the community, and sometimes you decide that okay, might as well like do this cool thing that everybody likes, different heroes, than trying to cling on too much on something that might in the end like hold us back.
Gotcha. So you get feedback on characters like Aladdin and Beowulf who don't have a connection to the knight that, hey, these are still really fun characters to play. You made great characters.
Yeah.
Okay, it might not be as necessary to like shoehorn us into specific day and night related. Okay.
But
Yeah.
if it makes sense, like, obviously we're gonna keep doing it,
Yeah.
like for Kamiya or for
Mm-hmm.
other stuff in the game.
Okay. And then are there any thoughts on adding set bonuses for certain groups of magical objects? We have like the super effects, but there's things like all the parts of the Raven in the game, or there's all the cards. You know, if you get the King of Clubs, Jack of Diamonds, Ace of Spades, all those, maybe you get a bonus effect on top of that. Is there any thought into something like that?
Yeah, I've seen these suggestions in the community. I think it's a really, really cool idea. I don't know how we could implement it. I will try to fight for it because I think it sounds really fun. But yeah, do you have a take on this?
Well, yeah, we are. Yeah, I can say it. I can say it that we're going to add new objects in the game, and we really like that idea from the community, and we're gonna see how we can make it fit, like this kind of type of effect, make it fit with yours or stuff. But as we're gonna add new objects in the game, we're definitely going to try to like play with all the already established families.
Okay. Oh, all right. That's really cool. Nice. I think yeah, set bonuses would be really cool. It'd be interesting to play the way in a different way, you know, where you're now deciding, do I go for the super effect of, you know, special cooldown with Ravenbeak, or do I pick the defense charge like the Raven Skull to try to get it? So, I mean, I know it's not an exact example on what you guys have planned, but I do think that way of playing is cool, giving the players some decision, like a second level of decision making with their magical objects. Here was an idea from chat that I thought was really funny. You said, could we skip the first phase of Baba Yaga fight if we have a key and just use it to unlock the door and go in the house?
What? So why would you want to skip it? Like it's just for the fun, or like do you really want to skip that phase of the fight?
I think the question is probably just from Baba Yaga is a 3-phase boss fight, and I feel like a lot of players don't feel like that first phase, if they are going to lose to Baba Yaga, I don't think they feel like they're going to lose to that phase, that it's either the skull phase or the fight with her. And so I think the question was like, hey, if I kept a key and I didn't use it on the boss, just let me skip that.
It would be difficult to answer that seriously. It would be difficult because it's one of the ending of the game. Like when you play in Twilight, that's where the end of the run ends.
It's at the end. Then
Yeah, so I'm not sure it's feasible, and plus it's like the house itself need I have to say it mérite.
Yeah, you kind of have to earn it.
Yeah, you have to earn to enter into the house, you know.
Gotcha.
Even if I get it that when you're an experienced player coming after the Avalon boss, which is tough, you have to go through this phase, which is not the toughest. But still, there are people dying there. Like we have the stats, and there are people dying there. So
I don't know if you guys have been watching the gauntlet that I'm doing at all, where I'm trying to beat every
I
single
did a
character.
bit, yeah.
Yeah, I actually did lose one of my runs to that phase, so that was
You
like
see?
my counterpoint to that question was I did lose there. And it would probably be weird if you're a new player and it's your first time and you happen to have a key and you skip that. You're like, oh, what just happened?
Yep.
And then are there any plans to add a bestiary to the game?
It's a cool idea. It's something that we thought of. It would be really cool. Most of our efforts have been focused on like stuff inside the game, like compared to the book. like the book stuff with the memoirs and the compendium and stuff like that. So we would really like to do it, but kind of takes time. It's UI. We have to make sure it look good, basically. So it's more kind of the idea. It's like we said, prioritizing stuff. Sorry, about like what do we put in there, what do we remove, what would be the most valuable for player. It's a very cool idea because we really like our bestiary. We did some nice stuff with that, and so we would be happy for players to see them more. But yeah, it's really about prioritizing what we want to do in a game. So
And I'm sure there's a lot of cool stuff to tell about the monsters in the game, like
I agree.
lore-wise. I already know, for example, where the undead hogs from Dark Hills are coming from, but it's just a fun way to explore more of the setting and just the story of the game, to explore the bestiary of the game. But like you mentioned, it's just priorities, especially when we touched on the UI. It's always complicated, and that's why things like seeing the wolf abilities for Scarlet as being taking so long to implement into the game. It's because every time we touch on UI, it's going to take some time, and we need to think: is it a good way to invest this time when we could, improve what you do while you're playing in the game? But yeah, definitely interesting to explore this idea in the future.
Okay. And then I was wondering if there are any thoughts of adding potentially just more chaotic moments to the game. And one of the ideas was like a roaming boss, because normally you don't, if you want to be optimal, normally you're not fighting too much outside of points of interest. You want to mainly spend your time in there, but adding like a roaming boss that you see that just leads to this chaotic moment where you're pulling in all these enemies, and it might just be like a low chance or something. But any thoughts on something like that into the game?
There's quite a story actually with the roaming boss. So, like the stalkers you face and the Baba Yaga's out were supposed to be that,
Oh, okay.
and they were apparently they were in the game like before the early access.
Yeah, before in the alpha, we tried it. They were not like roaming bosses, but they were stalking you basically. So they were tracking you on the map and trying to find you, and they will obviously attract enemies around them, and it would just become a mess. And we reverted that idea. We were like, okay, no, it's not working as intended, not a good feeling, and we used the stalkers a different way. But then,
Yeah, it was on the list for the first update to have like this roaming boss,
the
because
Nightmares Unleashed update, the first update of the live boss.
the first update of the live boss, the live ops, like the Nightmares Unleashed update. The thing is that like in the game, so we have some families that they still don't have their mini-boss version of it. Like you have the hogs, you have the nose, and you have the gargoyles. Oh, yeah, there's a rock, but back then we already knew that we wanted to make a boss rock. um, we kind of tried to work on that, but it's kind of taking the resources because if we want to make it properly, we need to make like 3 new mini boss, one for each map. We even had that concept of like a gargoyle that could still fight in a stone form, like chasing you. Like you would come out onto an activity and like the giant gargoyle would appear and start to fight you. So we do definitely have that plan. And
Or have the Og's Mama.
yeah, and the hogs mama that we like just could eat other hogs to regenerate, to gain back life and stuff like that. So we do have that idea that there's some design stuff. We even have some few hearts, and that's something that personally I'm not sure it's gonna be possible and feasible with all the updates and stuff that come. Personally, I would love to do that, and I'm trying to like put in into every update we're trying to do. Like we could do that, yeah, or we could do the boss fight.
Yeah, each time it's like update 1, okay, now update 2, no, update 3.
And because like so we had like all the live ops plan and for a year, and like there's more coming after that year, and the thing that something that slip off from an update is kind of sometimes tough to put it back in another update, as we said that we're working on multiple updates at the same time. So if you just cannot put it back there as simply as that, like people are already working on something. But I really hope that if we have the time and resources to do that, we can put it back into the game, because that would be very cool, and that's something that the team tried to do way back before.
Okay.
So yeah, I think it
Yeah.
would be very cool to do.
And there was even an idea that the wandering mini bosses, they could give you a key.
Yeah,
That was
yeah, we
one of
had
the
that.
ways to get a key on the map.
We even thought of, like, the first time you face Baba Yaga, you see the stalkers, and from then on, the stalkers are like freed on the map, and you could encounter them at any time. But by doing that, they kind of also remove like the unique stuff of that phase of the boss. So, but there's definitely something that I tried to do. To actually was like kind of a put in the balance, and on the Nightmare Unleashed update was in the balance between adding new patterns to the Nightmare bosses or creating like those new roaming bosses. We went with the attack patterns because it felt like it was the most urgent thing to do. But we're still working on that, and I really hope that we will be able to make it one day.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's awesome to hear. I think it's really, really nice or really cool when you have a game that does just have these random chaotic moments that you can't plan for, and you're just hit with something random. You're like, oh, this is what's currently in front of me, and I have to address it right now, or I just have to dip and go do something else. So I'm excited to hear that it was something that you guys were working on and planning, and that you hope to see in the game. I think that would be really fun. Okay, and then the final question. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but I have a YouTube short on it. Whenever I was asked what character
I've
do you
seen it,
want
yeah.
added to the game, I always said Humpty Dumpty. I think it would be really funny to play as an egg, like rolling around or doing these different egg moves. And then you guys put out the Nightmares Unleashed update, and one of the refugees is the King's Men, and he says, "Did you see what they did? They turned him into an omelet." I was wondering if that was like a personal attack, or if that was just coincidence. And will we ever see Humpty Dumpty in the game?
So funny enough, Humpty Dumpty, that name actually was in a few lists addressed to the community. It never, sorry to say that, it never reached a massive amount of traction, like a vote or something like that. People were not convinced on the idea of playing an egg. But what happened with the refugee story is that what we were trying to the refugee was like, each refugee is like kind of belonging into a story, but we could not like make them the most recognizable character of that story, because like they are all sharing the same appearance. Because back then, when you were committing on a choice with a refugee, you could not back down. So if people could identify the refugee first, it would kind of like nullify the whole point. So for each refugee, we tried to like make little a callback to like some famous story. And so we had the idea of Humpty Dumpty, and we worked with the writers because we have fantastic writers on the game. The memoirs are terrific, but so they are thinking on how we can make people understand that it's Humpty Dumpty. Well, just let's crack the egg. And the funny thing about it is that when we had the recording session with the actor making this refugee, the guy stopped us, says, "Sorry, guys, I don't understand. What kind of egg are they talking about?" And so we're saying, "Oh, it's Humpty Dumpty. It's actually he's dead." And the guy was like, "Oh, it's terrible. Why would you do that?"
I'm on his
So we
side.
kind of,
So you're kind of saying it's your fault.
yeah, it's not really my fault because I had the idea for Humpty Dumpty, but it was not dead per se. But
Okay.
the story was good, and I thought it worked. But if you actually pay attention to the refugee, they are all part of like a story, a folklore story, a fairy tale, all of them.
Yeah, no, I have noticed that a bit. I'm not familiar with all the stories, but when you guys first released them, it was really cool. The chat being like, "Oh, that's from that story. That's from that story," and just seeing that, you're tying all these folklore tales together. So I really think it's a cool idea for a game to make these heroes as like folklore heroes. One thing I also just wanted to compliment you guys on as well. Obviously, I've been covering this game and have over 1,000 hours, but there's no combat experience I've played in a roguelike like Ravenswatch. I admire your guys' decision to not make the dash an iframe. I know there's Witch's Broom, but to not make it an iframe, and you're more intentional with your combat. I think because of that, the animations need to be more clear and understandable to the player. And what you're facing needs to feel fair the entire time, where some games that have a spammable dash as an iframe, they can make their game kind of unfair because you have so much accessibility to that. And I really, really love how intentional you have to be with this game. And I just think kudos to you guys for making this game. I think it is easily in like the top 5 best roguelikes ever made. So I really, really love this game and want like the best praises for it.
Thank you very much. We did actually like buff Witch Broom in previous update, or is it in the upcoming
I
one?
think it's an upcoming one.
Ah, okay, my bad.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure anymore.
Should I
I'm
cut
not
that
sure
out?
anymore.
No,
But
it's alright.
no, it's all right. I'm not sure. See, it's not that big of a change. No, I think it was in the previous one. Yeah, I'm sure it was in the previous one, and it's still not very picked by players. So player kind of get used to the fact of not having iframe on the dash.
Especially that you're talking about the iframe on the dash. It's something that sometimes is negatively said about the game, is that the dash doesn't have iframe, and I'm always like, but the defense have. At least most of them, or I think all of them have.
All of them have,
but really short time,
But
depending
yeah,
on
with
the
Geppetto, it's a bit harder to time it.
yeah,
But all
I
of
agree,
them
I
have.
agree. But yeah, it's a really different way of approaching the game, and that's, I think, what makes it different from other roguelikes and other action roguelike game in general.
Mhm.
But yeah, thank you so much for the
Yes, thank you
compliment.
very much.
It's really nice to hear.
Yeah, I actually have a video planned on this because I do see most of the negative sentiment towards Ravenswatch I see being what I think is its biggest strength. And I think a lot of times what I see in negative reviews is not enough playtime to have learned why it's a good thing. And I think the timer is one of these big, and I like that you guys did address it with this update to try to ease new players into what they should be doing and how much time they should be spending somewhere. But I think once you learn this game and you learn that, don't think of the timer as pressure of, oh my God, well, I can't do everything on the map, but more of I have a limited amount of time to do as many things as possible. And you can actually do a lot if you know what you're doing with it. I think it's a brilliant idea. And uh, it makes me upset, or it like saddens me when I see players put the game down. But I've also received a lot of comments from people saying, I was playing this game and then I saw a video of yours and now it makes sense to me. It's like this, how you use this timer and what you do here, and it just opened up the game to me. So I do really, really like everything about the decision making with the timer, and I like that you guys didn't change it as well. I think that was the thing I was concerned about seeing reviews and stuff. I'm like, no, this is what makes the game the game.
Yeah, like I said, and I think it's on my Steam post, it's such an essential part of Ravenswatch, the timer. We could not remove it. I mean, that's how the game is played.
Yeah.
But we still wanted to address it. And I guess a lot of people don't approach the game the same way that we do or other players do. Like they see the more RPG part of it first, or the more hack and slash and such. Not necessarily the roguelike action. To me, by definition, roguelike, you have to make a choice. And it's non-different than Curse of Dead Gods, for example, where you have to pick a room. You cannot explore the whole temple. You have to pick a room, And here you're just like to yourself on a big map. But yeah, it's a different approach depending on the players. And that's something that is tough when you're balancing the game and adding new content. You have to think of the veteran players, the ones that are really aware of the game and how it's played and knows everything about the meta and such. And you have to think about the newcomers, the players, the casual players. And I think it's a good way, the way we did it in the Hourglass of Dreams updates, to address both sides of the community with the overtime and the Hourglass of Dreams.
Yeah, to get a bit of a story is like the idea of the hourglass and the overtime. It came from like kind of the two same feeling, like new players that feel they don't have enough time to finish stuff, and that sometimes they are inside an activity but they don't have time to finish it. And from on the other side, it was about like people even internally they had the habit of like playing the game, and like when there's like 20 seconds left, they would go back to the Sandman, spend every of their short, and they would be just idling, waiting. or even in some cases like on
Check in Discord messages.
yeah, and you are very good. Like you can clean, like it happened on Avalon. If you are very good, you can clip them. You can clip the map quite quickly due to its structure, and people will have like 3 minutes left, and they would not know what to do. And what we try to, there's a few changes that come with it, like with the fact that you are not teleport. I can say stuff.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yes, you can.
The big change that you are not being teleported automatically to the boss now anymore at the end of the timer due to the overtime. But it makes you think that, all right, I have let's say I have 2 minutes left. Do I start a new activity or I go directly to the boss? It kind of added like a layer to players that were very good and they never had that thing never have to think about that. Like I'm just completing every activities until I'm just forcefully teleported to the boss. So for a new player, it's adding like, oh, I don't think I have enough time to do an activity. I'll go directly to the boss. Maybe I'm gonna get an object, things like that. And the overtime is adding like a bit more leniency if you are finishing something. And for veteran player, it's like, all right, do I go very early because I know I can do it right now and I want to have a kind of an upstart for the next chapter? Or on the other side, do I use the overtime to the limit just to consume everything I can on the map to become stronger, even in the case of facing a stronger boss? So yeah, it was really the start of a reflection on how we can like reconcile these two aspects of the player base.
Yeah, no, I think it will change a lot on how players play. Just in my own testing and stuff, it's definitely my brain just works on like, okay, what's the most optimal way to do this? So I've been playing and trying to figure that out, and I is really enjoyable having this new experience and playing the game completely different now because of this time. It will make
Cool.
speedruns really cool to watch, I think, as well, because
Yeah.
speedruns are
Yeah,
very
we've talked
rewarding
about
now. Yeah.
We've talked about it. We've talked about it a
we
lot.
can't wait to see the new updated record on.
Yeah, we do have our internal record.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it is. I think
I
it's
do
like.
remember. We can share it, or do we wait for players to do their own run so we can
No,
like
you
use them?
you can share it.
It's like the personal record we have inside is like 6 minutes to do everything.
6 minutes?
Yeah, it was 6 minutes on Darkness, I think. I don't think he pushed on Nightmare. It's like with the famous Trapper build. Yeah. Gotta reach new heights with the new Bloody Mary. It's beyond my control now. I think I've been too far. And yeah, it did it and everything in 6 minutes. So it was quite nice to see.
Okay, that's the time to beat then. There you go.
Yep.
All right.
I have forbidden him to upload it on speedruns before the update, so I think he's gonna do it on the 17th.
I mean, it was one of the second things I tested was we're going straight to the boss and seeing how quickly we can do this and what happens in the next chapter and what rewards are there. But yeah, well, thank you guys so much for this Q&A session. It was really cool getting to talk to you guys and learn a lot about the game and hearing plans for the future and how you guys go about your decision making and balancing for the game. It was really enjoyable to hear.
Thank you so much. It was really nice and finally speak to you because we watched a lot of your videos. So
yeah.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I can't wait to see the new video. It's probably gonna give us a great insight on the new update and the new balancing changes.
All right. Well, thank you.